Welcome to Radio U.S. The Trump news conference on February 12, 2025, presented a bold reaffirmation of former President Donald Trump's economic vision, continuing the narrative that had defined his time in office, a commitment to prioritizing American economic interests above all else. As the U.S. navigated complex global trade relationships, Trump seized this moment to announce a new round of tariffs aimed at addressing what he perceived as the unfair trade practices of foreign nations. The conference provided an opportunity for Trump to reiterate his protectionist policies, which had been a hallmark of his administration and had shaped U.S. trade relations for years. In his opening remarks, Trump wasted no time outlining his position on global trade. He presented the U.S. as having been systematically exploited by foreign governments, which had long imposed high tariffs on American products while reaping the benefits of an unbalanced trading system. The former president argued that this imbalance had led to the outsourcing of American jobs and the decline of domestic manufacturing. For Trump, the solution was clear: impose tariffs to protect American workers and industries and shift the global economic balance in favor of the U.S. This was the essence of the Trump news conference, a clear message that trade relations would no longer be dictated by foreign nations and that the U.S. would take action to ensure its economic security. Trump emphasized that these tariffs were not merely a temporary measure, but a long-term strategy to restore fairness to the global trade system. The Trump news conference outlined a set of specific industries that would be targeted, including steel, aluminum, and automotive manufacturing. These sectors, Trump argued, were particularly vulnerable to unfair competition from countries that subsidized their industries and manipulated trade rules to gain an upper hand. He positioned the tariffs as a necessary tool for leveling the playing field, claiming that this would allow American businesses to regain their competitive edge and preserve jobs within the U.S. One of the more compelling aspects of the Trump news conference was the way in which Trump framed the tariffs as a reaffirmation of American dominance in global trade. He argued that the United States, as the world's largest economy, should not accept trade terms that were detrimental to its interests. By implementing these tariffs, Trump was not only addressing the immediate concerns of unfair competition, but also sending a clear message to the global market. The U.S. would no longer passively accept imbalanced trade relations. This strategic positioning was aimed at both protecting U.S. industries and reasserting the country's economic strength on the world stage. The Trump news conference also addressed some of the concerns that critics had raised about the potential negative effects of these tariffs. Critics warned that higher tariffs could lead to increased costs for American consumers, particularly in industries like electronics and automobiles, which rely on imported materials and components. Trump, however, rejected these concerns, framing the tariffs as a necessary investment in the long-term prosperity of the U.S. economy. He argued that while there might be some short-term disruptions, the benefits of protecting American industries and creating jobs would far outweigh the costs. This perspective reflected Trump's broader economic philosophy, which prioritized the long-term health of the nation's economy over short-term consumer price increases. In the Trump news conference, Trump also made it clear that he was prepared for retaliation from foreign trading partners. He acknowledged that countries like China, Germany, and Japan had already signaled their intentions to impose counter tariffs in response to U.S. actions. However, Trump remained resolute, portraying these potential retaliatory measures as an unavoidable consequence of standing up for American economic interests. He argued that these challenges were temporary and that the long-term gains from protecting U.S. industries would ultimately justify the risks of economic confrontation. His message was clear. The U.S. would not back down from its stance on trade, regardless of the consequences. A significant part of the Trump news conference also focused on the broader economic implications of the tariffs. Trump positioned the tariffs as part of a broader strategy to revitalize American manufacturing and bring jobs back to the U.S. He pointed to historical examples where tariffs had successfully stimulated job growth and protected industries from foreign competition. In his view, these measures were not just about addressing trade imbalances, but also about ensuring that the U.S. remained a global leader in manufacturing. He argued that the tariffs would encourage businesses to invest in new technologies and expand their workforce to meet the growing demand for American-made products. However, the Trump news conference did not only celebrate the potential benefits of these tariffs, it also acknowledged the complexities of implementing them. While Trump remained confident that the long-term benefits would outweigh the short-term costs, he recognized the potential for disruptions in certain industries. For instance, companies in the technology sector, which rely heavily on imported components, might face increased production costs, potentially passing those costs onto consumers. The car industry, too, expressed concerns about the higher costs of foreign-made parts, which could lead to higher prices for American consumers. Despite these concerns, Trump's economic vision continued to revolve around the idea that American workers and businesses should be prioritized above all else. The Trump news conference served as a platform to reiterate this protectionist agenda, which was centered on ensuring that the U.S. remained competitive in an increasingly globalized world. His call for greater economic self-sufficiency was not only a reflection of his political ideology, but also an attempt to address the frustrations of American workers who had long felt left behind by the forces of globalization. Internationally, the Trump news conference was met with a mixed response. While some foreign leaders acknowledged the U.S.'s right to protect its industries, many countries expressed concern over the potential for a global trade war. China, in particular, voiced its opposition to the new tariffs, warning that such measures would only harm both countries' economies. Similarly, the European Union expressed its concerns about the economic instability that could result from escalating trade tensions. Trump, however, remained unfazed, reiterating that the U.S. would continue to take bold actions to safeguard its economic interests, even if it meant facing international opposition. On the domestic front, the Trump news conference generated significant debate. Many of Trump's supporters applauded the tariffs as a necessary step to restore economic fairness and protect American workers. However, business leaders and economists voiced concerns about the potential for retaliatory tariffs, which could harm U.S. exports. The political fallout from the conference was immediate, with both Republican and Democratic lawmakers expressing reservations about the long-term implications of these protectionist policies. Some members of Congress, particularly those from districts reliant on global trade, cautioned that the tariffs could lead to unintended economic consequences for American consumers and industries. In conclusion, the Trump news conference on February 12, 2025, marked a defining moment in the ongoing debate over U.S. trade policy. The conference solidified Trump's commitment to his protectionist economic agenda, presenting tariffs as a key tool for reasserting American dominance in global trade. While the long-term effects of these tariffs remain uncertain, the Trump news conference made it clear that the former president's economic policies would continue to shape the nation's trade relations for years to come. As the U.S. navigated the complexities of these new trade dynamics, it was clear that the legacy of this news conference would be felt across both domestic and international borders for the foreseeable future.